Okay, appreciate everybody being here today. And we got several items of interest to be discussed today. First of all, I'll call the meeting to order. This is a meeting of the Board of Directors of the Cooperative District of the City of Leeds General, otherwise known as the District. There was a letter of notice sent out to the press notifying of this meeting, and in that notice was a list of items to be discussed. And if it please the board, then I'd entertain a motion that we adopt those items as an agenda for today's meeting. You have a motion? Second. Properly moved and second. Any discussion on any of the items, the way they're worded, or additions or deletions to our agenda? Who's doing the minutes?
I'm recording it.
Yeah, he's from City of Leeds.
We'll combine this for.
Okay. Everybody's happy with the way those are worded? No further discussion. All in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay. Moving on into our agenda, establish quarterly meeting dates is the first item to discuss. In the past, when we were real hot and heavy on the development of the district years ago, we actually had meetings probably sometimes twice a month. But we got away from regular meetings when our main project, Bass Pro, pretty much was developed. We were sort of in a situation where we'd meet and not really have any business to conduct. So we got away from that. But there's a lot more activity has taken place within the district, having to do with different ways of the finances being recorded and distribution of those finances. So there's been some discussion about establishing quarterly meeting dates. So we'll open that up to discussion, see what the board feels like about quarterly meeting dates. Comments? And without monopolizing the board's comments, I'm in favor of quarterly meetings. That's my comment.
I think the idea was,
sure.
It was just to set kind of maybe a standard date and time, like the second day of the month or something like that. Some standard date and time so everybody kind of knows.
Yeah, does that sound reasonable to do something like that? All right, look, let's think about your calendars and when you're busy. For instance, I'm busy, so is Commissioner Crowe, every second and fourth Tuesday, starting at 9 a.m. for county commission meetings. So second and fourth Tuesday mornings would be out for me. Generally speaking, though, the first and third Tuesdays are open for me, and then the other days. So Mondays are always good for me unless I've laid out somewhere after a long drinking weekend or something.
We know better. Oh, so we're gonna do this once a quarter. Why don't we do it the first Tuesday of each quarter? Is that
first Tuesday of each quarter work? One about as good as another. And that would put it on, when we say the beginning of a quarter, would that be January, April, July, and November?
January and October.
October. Okay, does that sound reasonable?
January, April,
July and October.
July, and October.
January.
First Tuesday, right?
The April the 5th.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Call and mess your calendar up.
The July the 5th.
I got April the 4th. Oh, I'm on Tuesday. That's right. All right, and July the 5th.
And October the 4th.
October the 4th.
On a Monday, it looks like.
This one's on a Monday, so Tuesdays, generally speaking, that's, we might change that one, but it'd be easy for us to look ahead and say that's going to be a holiday, and we'll send out a change it another day. But hypothetically, officially, our meetings will be set on those dates, if that sounds reasonable. Okay, I'd entertain a motion that we establish our regular quarterly meeting dates as the first Tuesday of the month, occurring quarterly, January, April, July, and October. Do you have a motion?
Motion to approve, the first Tuesday of the month in, January, April, July, in October.
Second?
Second.
Probably moved in second. Any discussion? That fits into everybody's schedule pretty well. No further discussion. All in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay. Next item is authorize Regions Bank as trustee to make monthly payments on the Grand River debt. And to discuss this, we will have our discussion team of attorneys and just tell us what all is included in the Grand River debt requirements and how we're going about paying.
I can take that. The way it's set up is that Leeds will remit monthly payments of the Grand River revenues to the bond trustee, Regions Bank. And the way the documents are set up is that then Regions makes quarterly payments to the bondholder, which is Leeds Retail Center LLC, which has been assigned to RSA. But it's also, there's a provision that the first payment to the bondholder doesn't start until, I think it's October of this year. So the money is just sitting in Regions, but the co-op district is accruing interest to the bondholder. So bond documents also allow prepayments to be made on the bond with the approval of the co-op district. So this would basically allow authorized Regions sort of put a standing order in place that each month Regions would remit the money that Leeds gives to Regions, pay that money to the bondholder each month, so that the money's not just sitting at Regions when you're accruing interest to the bondholder. So it's really, there's really no reason not to do this. There's really no benefit to it. The money's just going to sit at Regions, that Leeds pays to Regions each month.
So if the money's sitting there, it's accruing interest.
Well, the money's like, the co-op district owes the bondholder that it was a $23 million bond.
Right.
It's accruing interest at 8.5%.
Okay.
But any payments or prepayments that are made on that will go first to pay down interest. So this money that Leeds is paying into the bond trustee is just holding it and will continue to hold it unless otherwise instructed until next October. Then they'll remit it over to the bondholder. But the bond documents allow the co-op district to tell Regions, go ahead and start paying basically now or pay monthly or some scheduled basis other than quarterly. You go ahead and pay the money to the bondholder. And so this is just the money that Leeds pays to the bond trustee each month. And so we would basically tell Regions, at the end of each month, basically take all the money you got, pay it to the bondholder, and that'll go to reduce the interest on the bond that the co-op district owes the bond.
Okay. The money is just put into an account to at some point in time pay the payment?
Yes.
While it's in that account, it's drawing interest?
Well, it's really not that money that's
It's drawing interest against us.
Yeah, you're
So this
owing
might
interest.
this might save us a little money by doing this other way.
Yes, you're basically, I guess you could look at it this way.
I always
You're
ask this
essentially-
question, what's in this for me?
Well, you're basically paying interest at I guess if you look at it, the money that's sitting in the account at Regions that Leeds pays in, you're essentially paying interest at 8.5% on that. And if you go ahead and authorize Regions to prepay it on the bond, you're reducing that liability. So that's what's in it for the co-op district. Again, there's really no reason not to do that. And I would say just to sort of authorize Regions on a standing basis, unless otherwise instructed, that we would, maybe you as the chairman could just sign a one-sentence authorization that just says, until otherwise instructed in writing by the Cooperative District, at the end of each month, please remit all payments on the Grand River bond to the bondholder.
Everybody good with that? Understand that? Okay. With that, then we would need a motion to authorize me to sign a document that allows those payments to go to be made monthly. That work? Okay. Entertain a motion to that effect.
To authorize monthly prepayments.
Monthly prepayments.
Motion to authorize monthly prepayments to the bondholders from Regions Bank.
Or maybe just say, maybe we say monthly payments in lieu of quarterly payments.
But in our motion, who, to whom? From what to whom? In the motion, make monthly payments from
From the co-op district,
to,
from the trust account
from the trust account, there we go. In the motion, it needs to be worded
to the bondholder,
from the trust account to the bondholder.
monthly in lieu of quarterly.
Okay, everybody understand that?
Right.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Have a motion, have a second.
Is it already in there? Oh, yeah. Well, the agenda item sort of said.
The motion needs to be consistent with the agenda item.
Motion to authorize Region Bank to make a monthly payment on the Grand River debt.
Okay.
Until further
Until
instructed,
further instructed by Chairman Baker,
or by the co-op
or
district.
by the co-op.
All right, now, do we understand the motion? Do I have a second to it? Properly moved in second. Now, discussion. In the way of discussion, somewhere I'd like for the language to be put in. The discussion is that the money is to be made from the trust fund to the bond, or whatever needs to be in there. So we know what we were talking about.
Right.
A year from
I
now.
mean, I can draw up the document, just the one sentence for you to
Okay.
review
Good.
and sign.
All right, any other discussion? Everybody clear on that? All in favor of the motion, let them know saying aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay, moving on to item number 3, authorize Leeds to administer the day-to-day functions of the district and to report quarterly to Moody and St. Clair County. We've discussed this and what it means, and it means different things depending on which time we've discussed it. When we say administer the day-to-day functions, we're going to be covering, I'm assuming, the day-to-day functions of collecting the money in case there's billed out in the ancillary district, the collecting of the money in the special tax district, or for the ones that was there before, and the operations of the collections of the monies from the Grand River that haven't been rectified. So that covers all of those items.
And transferring the money to regions and then putting money in the
So-
co-op district.
So we would be literally, the co-op district would be asking Leeds, or authorizing Leeds to be the entity that handles those administrative functions. Is that what we're talking about? Okay. Baker. Any other questions on that? That's pretty much what we're doing.
Yes, sir.
All right. Once again, when I'd entertain a motion to the wording that's on the document here, authorize Leeds to administer day-to-day functions of the district and report quarterly to Moody and St. Clair County. Then when we do discussion, I'd like for us to elaborate on pretty much what those things are. So I'd entertain a motion to the effect of the document. So, have a motion, have a second. Properly moved in second. Now, in the way of discussion, if you could add those items that are administratively to be done somewhere in that document. Because there again, I'm not going anywhere, but Eric, he's so excited, he'll like to fall over any day. So we want to be sure. Me too, I'm on the verge. Mr. Barnes will be here forever, so we ain't worried about him.
Don't worry, I'm okay.
But you see what I'm saying? We don't document what those items are, and I think I went through some of them, but Bill, help us with whatever historically.
Well, I think, David, go ahead and then I'll add anything.
Okay.
Yeah, basically Leeds is gonna collect the revenue regardless, but this would authorize Leeds to remit all payments from the collection of the ancillary district, Bass Pro and Grand River to the trustees of whatever bonds are associated with each individual development down there, and then to remit any revenues that would go to the co-op district to the co-op district. And then at the co-op meetings, any funds that would be paid out, Leeds would handle the distribution of those funds to either expenses or to distribution.
I think originally too, one of the things that comes to mind was the money from those service stations and all going into a particular account that was in the documents. And we worked those out, but that's one of the things that Leeds would administer.
And then quarterly, Leeds will do something similar to what we've done for this meeting, and just give you a breakdown of what's happened in the quarter.
Okay. All right. Everybody clear on the discussion? Any more discussion? No further discussion. All in favor of the motion, let them know saying aye. Aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries that we hoodwink Leeds into doing all this administrative work for free. Item number 4, address claims for payment by former consultant. We, the co-op district, engaged a consultant back several years ago to help us resolve some issues. Actually, the consultant was acting as a mediator, pretty much. And there was some discussion that we have some old minutes too, that we agreed to pay a certain amount per hour, like we would a mediation fee. And there was some discussion capping those hours. And then there was some discussion that he was getting close to that total number of hours and would exceed them between that meeting and some future meeting if we didn't act. We didn't act, and there was some more work done. Now, we, the co-op district, didn't pay it because we wanted a breakdown like we would from all of our attorneys. Not that we don't trust lawyers, but we kind of like to get a list of what you did for us before we pay you. And so we asked the consultant to furnish a list of items that that he had done to make sure that that we had been diligent in recording those items. So we got some documents. Within those documents, there were some questions that were never resolved by this board as to whether or not some of the mediation was relevant to the actions of this board, because part of that time there was discussion as to whether this board had any relevance to the Grand River project. And also there was some question as to what part of the co-op district came under the control of the co-op district. Where was the co-op district? There's discussions about amount. All that came about the same time, and we never really nailed down what was co-op district and what might not be. Well, who else it would be, but we just knew there were some things we didn't feel like were the co-op district. And that's kind of where we left it. And it's been that way for now several years.
Actually, we had a map, and if you recall, the district agreed that map was in fact the district.
That's right.
And at one point it was going to be sent to the City of Leeds, I think, for council to vote on it or something like that, Mr. Morris. As we came back on the fifth amendment agreement, we modified that further. So we now have a defined boundary for what the district consists of, but at that particular time, you're correct, there was some question about it and whether or not Grand River was in the district.
Yeah, we got that part resolved. I think there was some thoughts by some people working on the project, not necessarily on this board, but in other areas, that thought the borders of the co-op district were somewhere that the map showed they were somewhere else. There was a little discrepancy in where were the borders and how much of Grand River's in the co-op district. That was a big part of it. How did that affect our mediator? If he worked on things that were outside of the responsibility or interest of the co-op district, then he worked on things that were outside of our place to have to pay for. That was our comment. We don't know who he worked on for, but there's where the discrepancies came from, and we never really resolved that. So today we need to try to resolve that issue and get it behind us. I think we've got, still have some documents. The last ones that I remember being reported to the co-op district were a total of $21,000 something. I just remember 21,000 something. It was $21,000 something based on so much per hour, and it came with a list of items. We can go back to where we were before and debate if some of those items were not the responsibility of the co-op district, and if not, who's worthy. You know, because there's several entities represented up here, Moody and St. Clair County and City of Leeds, and water board discussions and different things. So who asked this person to work on certain areas of this? And they were so intermingled. My position is, after we resolved the map and Grand River was in it, I think pretty much the work that was shown to me up to that 21,000 is something that I feel comfortable was a legitimate expense of the co-op district. I mean, other than arguing about it, somewhere in court find out that the co-op district was capped at 15 and that leaves 6 or 7, then that falls back on some entity to argue with. Those entities are still members of the co-op district, and I'd rather not put it on any entity that had to answer that question unless they want to. Now, I think if Leeds assumes that part of those items on there were Leeds expensed, and you can remove those from the 21,000 and argue them yourself. If the water board sees anything on there that was a water question or whatever. But I'm comfortable that the 21,000 something figure that we got was as legitimate a bill as we were controlling at the time. We weren't.
Do we have that document, Chairman?
Do we have the document with the 21,000 something?
Yes, sir. We do.
Okay.
Actually, the bill was 29,000.
Well, but I don't know that we ever got to discuss that one in a co-op meeting. I know we discussed
I don't think you've had a co-op meeting.
since the other bills came up. We only had the one that had the 21,000. But it's also pretty clear that the co-op district capped the work at 15,000. And
We had a self-imposed cap that the co-op district said that they didn't want to exceed, and then we had a meeting that we were about to exceed that, and that was on June the 11th of 2008, and you wanted a report if we were going over that, and we sent this bill.
yep, the bills came in, but there was never a vote of the co-op district to exceed the limit. We discussed it, but we never agreed to exceed the limit.
At that point in time, events were overtaking
Right.
the ability to have meetings, and that was part of the engagement letter, was that we knew that events were going to happen fast. We did exceed the limit. I think everybody knew that we were about to exceed the limit when we were in the middle of it, and everybody tacitly approved.
I disagree with that thought. I think we knew we were approaching the limit. Some of us assumed that when we got to the limit, we would stop working. I don't think that I never assumed that we would just continue working just because we knew we were going to exceed the limit. I thought that we had a limit, and that would be it. I thought we had a limit. So we wasn't going to get any more work done that we might or might not have needed done. But I don't remember us ever voting to exceed the limit.
Well, you didn't, but you didn't have a meeting. I mean,
Right.
that's-
Right.
But you still kept using the services. I mean, some
Well,
of the time that's billed is in the individual meetings with the Moody side of the board and the Leeds side of the board. But I don't.
Right.
To go back and, I pulled all the information out in anticipation of this meeting, and we have boxes of documents and stuff, but, I would propose this, just pay us the 22,000 that you said you had a meeting, and give the rest of it to the schools. So they split it between Leeds and Moody.
I don't think that we have any authority. This money is not ours to give out to schools or charities or whatever. This money's got to be spent on things that I think we're responsible for, and we're not responsible for that. If we didn't, if we paid the 21,007, what was the total you got?
$21,676.85.
That was the last document that we saw, knowing that there's going to be an issue on exceeding the limit. Anything beyond that, we got to decide whether we owe it, and if we do, we owe it to the person that did the work, and was the person authorized to do the work beyond that point. At that point, that's kind of where we are on it, I think. Discussion from the board.
You know, and I was a part of all those meetings. I know Ken wasn't here, and I do remember the $15,000 cap, and I do remember some meetings with Mr. White after that. So, you know, I think to keep from the argument between everybody, the $21,700, you know, it's, I think on behalf of the city of Moody, we'd be willing to pay that and be through with it. I'm only one vote on the board, so. But I feel comfortable with that. I know we asked Mike to do the work, and we brought him in, and we agreed to the number, and if we exceeded that number, you know, to that point, and so I'm okay with that number. There's not a contract that I know of. It's your contract, Mike?
Yeah, this is,
There was an engagement letter.
An engagement letter. I remember the engagement letter, yeah.
this is the.
There was
the
an
printout.
engagement.
I've got the other one that's.
The engagement letter, I think, was approved at the same time that a $15,000 cap was put on it. So I don't understand how there'd be any more validity to exceeding 15,000 than engaging. It was all done at the same time. To just assume that we could continue to spend the money, that would hold true all the way till today, because we hadn't said, okay, everybody stop. I think we stopped it at 15, but there was some work done during a time when there was some legitimate questions about whether or not the co-op district was really involved in Grand River, what responsibilities the water system had. I think there was some discussion on my part. I know then, I feel real strong that the co-op district didn't owe for a 24-inch water main for Grand River if it's none of the co-op business. So that was part of the discussion. It would only take about an 8-inch main to do Bass Pro, and so there was a discussion about that
There were
expense.
a number of issues that had to be ferreted out.
The highway widening.
What you had.
Yeah.
And what was where.
Yeah.
And I think that we did a pretty good job of resolving the majority of those issues.
Yeah, I think so too. I think it was pretty tough to wade through all of them, and we did get through
Well,
it.
and I hate it that it took so much time, which ran the bill up so high, but, I want to work with the board. I've enjoyed working with the board, Leeds and Moody. I'll be as cooperative as I can, and that's not a whole lot of money to argue over.
Well, I feel comfortable in resolving it with the figure that I felt like we left with was the 21.7 something. I know it was discussed.
670, 65.
676.85.
Call that out again, Bill. 21,675.
$21,676.85.
And to make sure that everybody knows why there's like 85 cents and stuff in there, it was good records because it kept records on phone calls and all kinds of things. So it pretty well split things down into what work was done.
Well, Stan, everything you've said, I basically agree with. The problem I have, or the insight that I have into it after studying these documents, when we get into the gray area is where I have the problem. The $21,000 plus is perfectly all right with me, but we have work done past that, documented with the very people that we had work done with up to the $15,000 cap. In other words, we're working with the same people. And the documents are all here and all clearly stated. I'm comfortable with what, if we compromise this thing, or Mike's, what he's satisfied with, but if you take the bill as it's, if you take it as it's documented here, we owe the money, in my opinion, because it's such a gray area. But I don't want to get into a big argument over a small amount of money or some amount of money, but I think he's probably entitled to the work he's done from the beginning to the end. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, I disagree. We had a $15,000 cap, and then we had the extra work that was done with an invoice that was sent in, and that's what I'm aware of. I wasn't aware of any additional work without the co-op approval to do it.
That's correct, Joe, but we haven't met or we haven't had any discussion on the work that's been done because we haven't met. There's been no discussion on it. There was discussion up to, in my memory, I can go back and look at my notes, but in my memory, it's discussion up to, like Stan had stated, on the 21,000 plus, but the same names and the same people appear on the remainder of the bill. So apparently, the work went on.
Well, I guess that could be discussed as well. Who did the work go on for? Leeds, Moody, St. Clair County, which one?
Yes, sir, you can look at the, what you got in front of you. I studied this some, Joe, and it's pretty well documented, whom he talked to and who he didn't talk to, and what times he talked to them, and what the cost and the charge was.
Okay.
Any other discussion? Let me just reiterate my concerns. I feel like there was a $15,000 cap that Mike and the board and all was aware of. And I don't feel like from a legal standpoint that we authorized going past the cap. Not having a meeting got it over into the 21,000 and something, which we started again and said, wait a minute, we had a $15,000 cap. So we restated there was a cap at about that point in money. Then we hadn't had any more meetings. And then there was still some more work. Because of the board not reestablishing its position that we're only gonna pay $15,000, I think we did let it go to the 21,600 something. Beyond that, I think we actually restated our position. You know, there's a cap at 17. We thought it would stop at that. But we didn't. So I'm comfortable with paying the 21,676, whatever it is.
I don't know that, I guess I just wasn't aware that we'd reinstated our position at 21,000. Stan, maybe just wasn't there, or wasn't in the group when it was reinstated. However, from a legal standpoint, I'm not sure that reason is correct. Is legal or not legal, I don't know. I don't know. But when I look at the bill and I look at the times that the bill was built for, I can't quite get clear in my mind if we went over the cap of 15,000 and went to the 21,000, the difference in the 21,000 and 29,000. We're over the cap and we had no meeting and we didn't do anything. We didn't say to the man, stop work, I'm not aware.
Well, there is where I have a little different feeling.
Okay,
I think we told him to stop working at 15,000.
Okay, you may have.
I mean, I think we
But
set
I'm not
a
privileged
cap.
to have
We set a cap to mean, and I guess I would have misunderstood what a cap would mean. But we will hire a person for services and capping our total expenditures at 15,000.
Okay, I just wasn't at that meeting, I'm
Beyond
not aware of
that
that, but I
point.
can't quite distinguish the difference between going over at 15,000, if we're gonna live with a $15,000 cap, then I can't understand why we didn't live with a $15,000
Yeah,
cap.
and I guess we've got a room full of lawyers, and I'm not sure.
I'm sure we got more legal.
There's probably a lot of this goes on out there, and how's it resolved? How's it usually resolved? The judge just makes a determination. For instance, if a guy carries his car in to have work done on it, and the estimate was 15,000, and then they also painted it, and it cost 21,000, does he owe the other 6? If he didn't authorize the painting of the car.
Unauthorized work, I guess, if you didn't engage the person to do it.
And that's what we're saying now, but did we engage? We didn't engage by a specific item, like you would fixing a car in a wreck or something. We engaged for services.
Well,
That's kind of open-ended.
If you had a fixed cap, it wasn't just an estimate, it was more of a.
We said 15, we
contractual
said we'll pay for these services up to $15,000.
if I could just interject a little bit, our agreement from our end was that we would do the work at the hourly rate. The board imposed its self-imposed cap of 15,000, which was fine, and we talked about we're reaching that level. And although we were making progress in what we were trying to do, we weren't there yet. It took a considerable amount of time just to gather the information because nobody had it. So it's like if you have a water you think.
Yeah, what I would like to do to resolve this would be for this board to authorize the services that Mike provided up to $21,000 such and such dollars. Then we'll clear it up. Yes, we authorized that amount, and then we'll pay that amount, and the whole thing will be behind us. Anything from that amount up would still be in contention if it needs to be, or if we want to close the door on it altogether, that Mike agreed that $21,700 is enough, and that there are no other claims against the board. That'd be the best way for us, of course. But,
Well, I certainly don't want to get into a big argument with the board. I come up here to help you, not to argue with you.
but we can do I think I see a nod of the heads enough for the $21,000 something.
I would perfectly agree with that, if I can ask two questions to Mike. Number one, are you satisfied, you're the one that did the work, are you satisfied with the $21,000? And the B part is, I want to resolve this solid today. I don't want to leave any windows open to have a problem down the road. Mike saying, well, I just wasn't treated quite right on this, and you know, and you got a gray area there. I'd like to resolve it today.
Yeah, I think you should get a release. I mean, in consideration
I guess
for
that's
21,000, get a release of the
Well,
co-op
that's a
district.
legal term, I'm sure.
Right. I mean, it's just, it says this is it. It basically says this is it.
Well, our position
Everybody
is
okay.
that, you know, that actually, going back over what happened and pulling documents and the email to refresh them, it was 2.5 years ago. There was a lot of time it wasn't there. So we're comfortable with the $29,000 vote. Now, if the board's asking me to discount the deal, to reach an accommodation to solve all this, I'm perfectly willing to do that because I enjoy working with Leeds and Moody and helping. I didn't do it for the month. So, you know, that's fine. There's not any lingering.
That'll make a resolution of it then. I think we've got consensus enough today to do that.
And let's just get it behind us and, you know, we'll get on to the next project, and if you need my help again, I'm available.
I'd entertain a
Motion
motion.
on release all parties or just the co-op district?
All parties.
I think all parties, because there was some
It needs to be all
conflict in
parties.
there, but.
Just because, I mean, if there's any claim that owes some entity, you know, engaged in separately from the balance or something, you know. I mean, it just needs to be done.
On this particular one, all parties.
Yeah, I mean, on this,
Anything in the future, you might want to.
Oh, yeah.
I think as your intent with it, if I interpret what you said,
Yeah, I mean, I
you're
know.
willing to give us on all parties
Right.
legal.
Well, I mean, I'm not gonna
I understand,
take
but
less money than hold it against you, or I would be arguing for the whole thing.
I understand that, but my question is direct, are you gonna sign a release?
Yeah, what's that?
Well, let's resolve this. If we
Make
can.
a motion that we approve to pay Mike White $21,676.85 upon his release from any other obligation.
Conditional on his signing the release.
Do I have a second to that?
Yes.
Probably moved in second. Now, any further discussion? Everybody happy with it? I'm hoping we can get this aside, because like I said, Mike did us great, we were in pretty good battle right then. Mike did a lot of work for us, and we appreciate that work. I wish we'd have been a little bit more on top of it and nailed down some facts and some figures there for us, but we did. Any other discussion? No further discussion, all in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Motion carries, and we'll be giving you your money.
And where, question, where will the money come from?
It'll come out of the co-op district funds.
We'll get into what those funds are.
Okay.
Item 5, coordinate reimbursement to Leeds for any shortfall in the municipal service reduction amount.
If everybody look, they have a packet that's in the binder there. First, I'd just like to give a recap of the well, first of all, I'd like to say that there is sensitive taxpayer information in this, so please keep this confidential. The bank statement that's attached is fine, it's public record because it's a public account, that's no problem there, but some of these other pages do have taxpayer information on there, so I would ask that you keep this confidential. On the first page, it breaks, there's a breakout of kind of a reconciliation of supposed to go into the account, what's actually in the account. There was some money that was supposed to be put in for initial retail sites that's in the co-op district. And there was a break-off period from June of '07 to August 2009, the fifth amended restated co-op agreement. That money, that's why I broke it out the way I did. So that first total, $145,173.78 was for that period. And then it goes on for from September 2009 to November 2010, which is our most current collection month. That amount is listed there. And then there's some Grand River non-pledged revenue that goes into the co-op for October and November that you'll see there. So that gives a total.
Would you, on those non-pledged revenues, would you just mention what those are from?
I can do that. It is, there's 1 penny of the Grand River sales tax revenues that is not required to be paid to Grand River, and the PIBA debt, it's not required yet to be paid under the PIBA debt because the city's prior long-term debt is still outstanding. So there's a window right now between essentially whenever Grand River opened, November, and like maybe April.
At some point in time, it is committed, but it's not yet.
Yes. There's about a 2-year window.
Okay.
Maybe not.
2013,
It's either 2012 or 2013 when that extra penny has to either start going to PIBA or Grand River, but it will not go to the co-op district until the Grand River debt is paid. So there's going to be some months in the next year or two where there will be some revenue from 1 cent of sales tax from Grand River coming into the co-op district that can be used for distribution to Moody, St. Clair, and Leeds.
Okay.
So it's kind of a bonus, if you will. I mean, it's sort of like, but don't.
Windfall for a short period of time.
We would, make sure everybody's aware though that this is a temporal thing, that this is not a permanent thing. So
It does kind of go away, you said, about April of 2013.
it's either 2012 or 2013.
So there would be a way for us to say estimate gross sales and estimate about how much will be coming into that over a period of time, so the co-op district can maybe make some plans knowing that money's going away.
Yeah, I mean, you'll probably see, the money coming in for December obviously is going to be great because
Sure.
of Christmas holidays, but maybe in January and February we'll start to see sort of what the pattern of that amount is on a more normal.
I guess what I'm saying from an accounting standpoint, could you maybe give us a trend, just a trend, that there should be plus or minus 100?
I'd like to wait till the July meeting to do that,
Sure.
so we have some time that's not holiday and not
Yeah.
the initial grand
Okay.
opening. Let's get a couple months of kind of normal operations and, in the April, May, and June.
The reason that's very important, if we start looking at that and something else comes before the co-op district, we ought to just think, well, we got this money, so let's just go spend it, and then after 2013 it goes away and we
So we can find
have
that.
some debt, so.
Yeah, well, but keep in mind, there's debt on the Series C Bass Pro that, so this money will be distributed out to the parties, but then there's gonna be essentially a contribution right back for the, it's not gonna be sufficient enough to cover the,
At least we'll know that it's gonna cover that portion though, and
it'll help,
and then other things might happen in the district between now and then to
Yeah,
actually do something different to
That's
cover that amount. So that's what we're hoping, this whole thing grows to cover its own expenses.
Right.
That's the whole
Absolutely.
plan all along. Okay. All right, any other question needed on that? Good on that?
And then down at the bottom, it just shows, there's taken from the 12/31 bank statement, there were a couple deposits that we just made into the account that weren't on that statement, so I just wanted to break those out. All deposits have been made though, so as of right now, the balance that was supposed to be deposited into the co-op, the $323,944.60, has been deposited into the.
And this is in that stated regions account, or does this have anything to do with that? It doesn't matter to us, we just know that there's some document somewhere that says there's a Regions bank account.
There is no Regions bank account. I guess it was the city. I don't know who opened it up. At some point, there was an account opened up called the City of Leeds Cooperative District Shared Revenue Account at Service First Bank, and that is where all this money goes.
Okay, will that cover us on that Regions requirement? And Bill, I'm asking you because you was here early on when that was put in there.
Yes, sir, that was done at least 2 drafts ago, I think.
Okay.
And the documents,
I just knew we'd all heard that this money's in a Regions account.
and at one point in
It's
time.
in Service First now.
Service First, good. We don't care what, we just.
At one point in time, there was a question about that account, whether it existed
continue to share reconciled bank statements with you guys every meeting so that you guys keep up with what's in the account and how it's been spent.
Okay.
And then if you turn past the bank statement, we get into the municipal services reduction worksheet.
Oh, one last, I'm just looking back at the co-op district agreement. It does say it'll be paid into an account with Regions Bank or such other bank approved by the board of directors of the district.
Such other bank approved by the board of directors of the district.
So I would say.
So that way the district, whoever's on this district board knows where their money is.
Yes, so I would say as part
Case
of.
before, the only person that knew where their money was Leeds.
Right. So I would say as part of this, go ahead and authorize
Gotcha.
the account to be with Service First.
I
to
got you.
avoid having to move.
Yeah, makes sense.
That makes sense.
Okay.
What's the account called?
It's,
I mean, what's the co-op district account?
it's the name on the account, the official name on the account, the legal name on the account is City of Leeds Cooperative District Shared Revenue.
Well, let's clear that up right now. I entertain a motion that that the board approve the funds that would normally come to the board out of the co-op district operations be deposited in the Service First account. Second. Properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor of the motion, let it know by saying aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries, so it's now officially in an account that the board knows about.
And just for reference to add on to that motion, the account number is 11100291111.
Okay.
So there's a number tied to it. The next three pages, page 4, 5, and 6, gets into a municipal services reduction. There's a formula in the talk, and Paul and Bill can elaborate more on this. There's a calculation that is to be done to reduce some monies that are pulled out of Bass Pro revenues for public safety at the City of Leeds. Bill brought up some question about a couple of the properties on here that we need to dig into a little more, so I might recommend that we table this until the next meeting.
Well, I mean, the particular properties, I mean, we'll go and look at the trust indenture, but the trust indenture with Regions has the list of properties that are in the TIF district. And it calls it the modified TIF district, but then in the definitions, it says modified TIF district is something to the effect of the property set forth on Exhibit A. And Exhibit A is a long, about 6 or 7 page list of addresses.
And y'all may remember, originally when we started, the Leeds TIF district included the area out around the Bass Pro and Grand River, but it also included an area that went through downtown Leeds. And that area, really from the top of the hill, what's named as Carolyn Street, nothing past that was supposed to be involved in any of this. And I think if you look at the Bass Pro agreement where this municipal service reduction amount originated, or if you look at the Grand River document, those two documents are consistent in calling it, and y'all will recall, we referred to it as the modified TIF district. In other words, it was only the part of the district that was around the 140 interchange. It was not supposed to involve anything in downtown Leeds. Paul tells me the trust indenture may have some conflicting language, and I haven't seen that. We're gonna look at that and I guess further come to the conclusion of what does the trust indenture obligate us to that's different, if anything. So we may need to not.
What that would mean to the board is if these properties aren't included, then there would be no reimbursement by the co-op district until 2011. So.
But we asked Regions to conform the definition of TIF district, or modified TIF district, to what had been done subsequently with Bass Pro. And they said, absent, I mean, they represent sort of the bondholders. And so the bonds are out on the market. So they have sort of an obligation to that. And then Leeds has an obligation to pay in accordance with the trust indenture. But they said if somebody will give them an opinion, that the trust indenture can be amended absent bondholder consent, that they would do it. So if you can, I mean, we can't get that opinion. If you can give them that opinion, then we're good to go. Because we have the same interest. We don't want those properties to be included any more than you do, or any more than Moody or St. Clair County. We want those to be excluded as per the Bass Pro agreement. But the problem is the trust I'm just saying, keep it in mind, that if I think regions, if somebody will give them an opinion that they can amend the trust indenture, without bondholder consent to conform that definition to what was done subsequently with Bass Pro.
But you don't think that opinion can be given?
I don't want
You don't think?
Doing that's giving an opinion.
Yeah.
What's your opinion on this?
All I can say is we can't give that opinion.
Yeah. The problem.
What's your opinion?
The
My
problem
opinion
is,
is I'm not giving that opinion.
um,
Well, I mean, I mean, the document is what it is. I mean, you look at it, I don't, you know.
I mean, we went through a lot of legal expense to try to define this, and there was 3 maps or 3 different references, or it was 4, it was 3 or 4, and what was filed with the bondholders and sold to the bondholders and filed with regions was these addresses. And that was done by the attorneys that closed out Bass Pro, was it not?
It was.
So I don't know how you can give a different opinion. And the problem, you know, is we've expended a lot of money to figure this out. And I'm not, you know, really willing to have us expending more money to figure it out.
Well, Eric, you know, here's the thing, this was never the intent of the document. The City of Leeds never intended for its downtown properties to be included in
I understand that, and I felt that way too.
And I would like, you know, some time, number one, maybe to go back to the bond attorney who did that Bass Pro closing, or maybe someone else. And, you know, but of course, the first thing I want to do is actually see this trust document and see if it does go back complete. I understand what Paul's saying, and I'm not really questioning that opinion other than I haven't seen it. And so, and because I know that this was not what we intended to do, you know, I think it's worth some amount of further look-see on it. You know, at worst, you'll have another meeting in 3 months in April, and you can always call a special meeting to address it if you need to. So I'm just saying, you know, at this point in time, because this is contrary to the Bass Pro agreement, it's contrary to the Grand River agreement, it's contrary to everybody's understanding going in. Before we make a decision, let's just be maybe double sure that's what we have to do. Because I don't really think Leeds wants this.
No,
We don't.
nobody.
So,
We don't want it. The problem.
May argue about it for.
I argued about it for a month, but we spent, you know, when I was arguing with our own legal counsel in the Regions Bank, and so it cost a considerable amount of money to get this thing.
Well, there's about 4 different definitions of the modified TIF. One is in the trust indenture, one is in the agreement with Bass Pro, one is in the 3rd amended and restated Cooperative District agreement, which is sort of where we started with all those. And then there's a 4th one in the final modified TIF district as it exists now. So there's,
And it will probably have to be as it existed at the time the Bass Pro bonds were issued.
and that's what
That's what
the
he's
problem.
going by.
Is we're going off the trust indenture as opposed to sort of
Which
the
is,
other agreement.
which is the one described, I think, in the 3rd amended agreement, if I remember correctly. But again, we're on the 5th version of it, and I don't have all those here.
I think the Bass Pro agreement defined it to include, I guess the cutoff was Carolyn Street, and then going, whatever, I think across the river, I think it included that acreage, that 4,000, whatever it was, acres. And then in the 3rd amended and restated co-op agreement, I think it cut out that extra acreage across the river.
But all of those are consistent in that none of them included downtown Leeds. None
Correct.
of them included anything past Carolyn Street.
Correct.
But who drew up the one that included downtown Leeds?
Whoever the bond attorney was that did the trust indenture. Do you know who, I don't know, building it.
I know I suspected.
But did it have to be signed off on by everybody, or just him?
The trust indenture, yeah, I mean, you're talking about a 100-page document with an exhibit, so, you know, presumably it got authorized at some point, but whether, you know, somebody noticed, like, oh gee, that doesn't have the right exhibit. maybe there's another, I mean, that's what we have as part, we were given the Bass Pro transcript. I don't, you know, maybe there's something else that, somebody has that had the right exhibit, we don't have the document. So if somebody, I mean, if you can figure out a way to avoid that outcome, it's in everybody's best interest. But we've kind of looked at it, we've talked to regions, I don't know.
Okay,
We've kind of come to the conclusion that the trust indenture is what we need to go under.
tabling this won't cause any undue damage to business of the board, I don't think today, and like Bill said, we can always, if it becomes an issue that Leeds needs resolved, after some studies done on it, we can always call a meeting, and resolve it in a call meeting. And otherwise, it should hold till April on that.
And let me make this comment too, I think David has done a good job in how he is approaching it. It's nothing, there's no criticism of what he's done or what he has given us. It's just a matter of interpreting all those documents and agreements and.
We'd love to not have one on there.
Understand, so.
But also those additional properties they don't add a whole lot, do they?
No, they don't, but there's the potential that you could.
If something major gets built in
Yeah.
there.
What's
So-
I'm sorry, what's the, difference in the money right now?
Each worksheet breaks down what, start on page 4, there's a kind of little chart down, or a little section square down at the bottom, it says amount reimbursable by co-op for 2009. So that amount, and then on page 5, there was no construction completed in 2009, so 2010 stayed the same. And then, so the total of those two would be the $45,794 would be the cumulative total for 2 years for those two properties. And of course, it continues on each year.
So we're
So
asking,
it's about $22,900 a year.
so you're just asking for your entity that you represent, for you to look into this? Okay. All right.
Let's,
Nope.
Okay, item number 5 is coordinate reimbursement to Leeds for any shortfall in the municipal services reduction amount. I'd entertain a motion that we table that until our next official meeting, whether that be a call meeting or a regular meeting. We'll table that until the next meeting. We have a motion to do so. We have a motion.
Motion to table.
Have a motion to table. Have a second.
Second.
Properly moved in second. No discussion on the table motion. All in favor of the motion, let me know by saying aye. All opposed, no. Motion carries. Okay.
Yeah, I understand that, but by reimbursing the co-op, nobody's out of pocket money. So there would be no money to keep track of on the reimbursement side down the road.
Right.
If we do it where we distribute the money and then Moody St. Clair reimburse Leeds, then we would have to keep track of that money, and it would add to the accounting actually.
Right.
I guess if we want to be technical about it, I mean, there's a distribution provision in the agreement. The money goes first, I guess, to reimburse Leeds for the municipal service reduction amount. So whatever reduction in the municipal service reduction amount cumulatively is, you have that number.
that depends on if those properties are involved.
Correct.
And we've got the other provision that says through August of 2009, that money is to be distributed. Because in 2009, there was no municipal reserve amount excess, so that's what they asked for.
Right.
In other words, the agreement says that from June 2007 to August 2009, this amount gets paid out. And if you look at David's municipal service calculation over here, you'll see that through 2009, there was only Bass Pro.
Bill, can I make a suggestion?
So there's not any amount that would be due for 2008 or 2009.
No, there is for 909. It depends on these properties, depending on what happens to these properties.
Can I make a suggestion, Bill, that might work? What if we went to Regions and we classify this as a bill that's owed by the board today, that we haven't paid, and ask Regions to give back their money and us just pay them, write them a new check.
Well, it's not a bill, the bill is owed by the board. The bill's owed by the three entities.
The entities, so,
Because we're all separate and not issuing the C-bond.
But regions,
Yeah,
they won't, I mean, they're probably not gonna give us the money back. I mean,
Well,
I'm not gonna.
That part's been,
I'm okay with reimbursing the entire amount as long as there's documentation that it's a repayment of C-bonds.
I guess we could do it the way y'all talked about, is make the distribution and you do the check back and just swap checks.
Yeah, but then we have to keep up with, because now, doing it that way, we need St. Clair now out of pocket money with C-bonds. If we distribute it out of the co-op account.
which is the whole point.
That's the
That's
issue.
the whole issue.
Yeah, but if you distribute it directly out of the co-op account, nobody's out of pocket any money.
Right, and so therefore Leeds doesn't owe any reimbursement to the C-bonds like they do under the agreement.
Technically,
But-
technically, the
Why?
reimbursement should come to Leeds from Moody and St. Clair County, not from the district. Because
I don't know why you wanna
entities
add that
are-
accounting step too. So now you're having to keep up with that money over a period of years.
I only wanna add it because, of course, the state examiners comes in on ours, and they don't care how many steps we had to add, as long as we did it like they wanted it done. And I think they would like it better if we owed a bill, that bill was paid exactly in the amount we owed. Not that we showed them that we broke it out of some other fund and reimbursed out of it. I think,
That's fine.
I don't think we'll get a finding on it, but I think they would look at that and say, you need to clean this up. This.
We can do it anyway.
Well, is there enough money, to reimburse you for that? If you go ahead and distribute the initial retail site money to the parties, is there enough money then to reimburse you from the co-op district?
Yeah, either way, there's still money.
When, I mean, because there is a separate section, I mean, 3.08 says, you know, for the initial retail site, that, well, it says that the money will be used to pay existing expenses of the district, which, I mean, I think that expense that we went through, the 21,000 account, and then divided and distributed to the public bodies based on their percentage interest.
Right.
So you could take 21,000 off the, what was the total? 143, 148.
145.
We take 21,676.85 away from that, distribute it, and then Moody and St. Clair will each reimburse Leeds 25% of that letter of credit.
But I'm not sure that you have to, because I think that,
I think they wanna do that just to keep their records clean.
but I'm not sure that's the way the agreement works. I mean,
Alright.
I think that, I mean, going through the agreement, you do that, you pay the expenses, which are the 21,000, you make a distribution to the parties, and then you still got funds in the co-op of, you know, a fair amount. And then you go down the 3.07, go down the list. First, you get paid Leeds gets paid any cumulative reduction in the municipal service reduction amount. I understand we gotta work through what that is based on whether the properties are in or not. Once you make that determination, then you pay each party that's made payments on the Bass Pro debt, you reimburse them, basically.
So it is the second step.
That's the second step. So whoever's made payments gets reimbursed. You've made the
Actually,
98,000,
St. Clair
and they've
should
made some
submit.
payments too.
So
Yeah.
actually, they should submit.
Well, then let's follow that procedure.
So actually, Moody St. Clair need to come to, you guys need to come to the meeting with what you put out of pocket, so if there's any money to distribute, that gets reimbursed first, according to this. And then any money left after that gets
After we
distributed.
reconcile all that, the pool that's left, we split.
So we're trying to keep everybody to zero first, and then
As
distribute
much as
money.
possible, yeah, so that there's no huge accumulation of reimbursement for Bass Pro money.
So I'd say at the April meeting, you guys need to bring your invoices in.
Well, I mean, we could do this, you don't have to have a meeting necessarily, just sort of administer this.
Yeah, we just voted that it would be,
Leeds.
this money would be administered by the city of Leeds.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if you, you know, generally, everybody should be pretty much in the same boat as far as the Bass Pro thing. You know, it's not like somebody's gonna have a different exit for that.
Yeah, once we reimburse you on the letter of credit fee,
Everybody should be
Everybody's
good at their percentage.
That's enough, yeah.
why don't we do that, and we'll get the information and compare it with David, and I think we can all agree on what that is, subject to just those properties in the deduction. Get him an answer on it. I think that's gonna be the only question we have on it.
the coordinate reimbursement?
I think that was it.
The co-op is gonna reimburse Leeds.
Co-op's gonna reimburse Leeds,
According to the agreement.
which will take out the 50% that would've gone to Leeds, is going to Leeds anyway. The 25% that's gonna go to St. Clair and Moody will go to Leeds because they've already paid the amount St. Clair and Moody would have had to pay.
I think we're gonna follow the agreement.
Which you're gonna make a district, the initial
Distribution.
retail site money from that early period of June of '07 to.
Okay, we're gonna do a distribution.
August of '09.
Then we will actually get invoiced.
No, there's about 145,000 from that prior money that was before this was all signed. And the deal was,
Okay,
and the way it reads is it says after the district expenses are paid,
yeah,
then that money will be distributed. So they'll write him a check for the 21,000 whatever, 700 whatever, and then make a distribution of the remainder, which will be about 120 something thousand, 50% to Leeds and 25 to Moody, St. Clair County. He'll write y'all get checks for that amount, and then we'll go to section 3.07. He'll calculate when I'll work with Bill to figure out what everybody kind of is on the page with what the municipal service reduction amount is, and that makeup payment will be calculated in the first distribution. That'll be paid to Leeds. The next amount will be paid to Leeds. Will get the 98,000 back, and there's enough money in the co-op district, I think, for this, so you're not actually gonna have to write checks for this. And then the co-op district will pay.
Whatever's left will be distributed out.
so there'll be two distributions.
And then and then Moody and St. Clair will get reimbursed, and Leeds, for the debt service. I think there was a principal payment made last summer on the Series C
Yes.
bonds, and there may have been some remarketing fees. I mean, it's something, it wasn't a whole lot of it. I think there's a few small fees for the remarketing on those bonds. So whatever that amount is, then there'll be distribution, so everybody kind of gets reimbursed, and hopefully there's enough money to kind of get everybody back.
I'll cut separate checks and give a report of what each check's for.
Okay.
Does that work? Okay. I think that works for all of us.
Render to LLC and then reimburse for the.
Well, then I don't think item 5 will require any kind of a motion or anything to do this. This is just an
Not since it's in the agreement.
county issue and it's in the agreement.
Yeah.
That's good, everybody?
I'm okay.
All right. Moving on to item number 6, reimburse Leeds for the letter, well, that's the one was on. Item number 7, report and distribute initial retail site revenues.
Kind of just
I
talk
think
about
you just talked about that.
And
you
just
decided how
so
to do
you
that.
know, page 8, 9, let's see, I'm sorry, page 9, 10, and 11 kind of break down what those receipts were, so you can see those numbers. And they tie back to that very first page.
Okay.
And then
Any
page-
questions on the report on that? Got it with you, you can carry it with you. Let me open the door again, since it's been a while since we had a meeting, and also got Ken here, and it's been a while since we discussed it. The initial retail sites included 2 service stations and a motel. Was there anything else in the initial retail sites? Those are the 3 tax coded entities there. Okay.
One thing about the motel is that there's not a sharing of lodging taxes. I don't know that hotel or motel produces any sale. I mean, I don't know if
They have some issues.
That's a real issue.
That's
We're working through.
but for the most part, it's the 2. Yes.
Questions on those?
And the new business build, is that in the ancillary district?
The hotel?
No, the strip center there.
With the
no, it's
subway and all?
No, it's not.
It's not, that's why that money can be paid in the account. Is it?
The strip.
Where is it?
It's above the Chevron.
I just thought that was an ancillary district for some reason.
No. I heard,
Okay.
show you guys this map. The initial
They'll pay, don't pay sales tax.
Oster, right?
They do.
Right, what everybody calls Oster.
Seventy-eight comes through here. This is, ancillary camping unit. This is the initial retail site, the Distrct Center is right here. This is the land between 78 and
Okay, that's in the ancillary as well, and
That's the land between 78 and Garage Day, yeah. That's it, that is.
everything that goes up the hill's not.
That's correct.
Okay.
You got a question?
I'm good.
Robert's got hospital.
Jimmy Rock?
Got fluid around his heart and lungs.
Right.
Sure he has been struggling trying to breathe.
It's right above the initial retail sites.
Commissioner Roberts.
That hotel's right there.
Surgery, he just can't get him squared away.
It's right outside the initial retail sites.
Look back on the map, that sounds right.
He had trouble breathing. I don't think so. Everybody good on the report and distribution of the initial retail sites information you have here? Okay. Moving on to item 8, report and discuss and distribute non-pledged Grand River revenues. We discussed those, and those had to do with some different taxes that won't come into play that are free to be distributed into the co-op district. Also,
Those breakdowns are on page 12, 13, and 14. in your
okay.
packet. It's the breakdown of what was sent to the trustee and what was put in the co-op.
Okay. Now that, the 61,251 was transferred to Regents.
Yes, sir.
And what was it for?
That's the pay on the Grand River debt.
Okay, we got that. And then the other part was the part that's gonna be free till about 2013 sometimes, goes into the co-op district.
Got a report on the use taxes. The taxes were charged on construction materials used in the construction project.
Send them a check.
Yeah, I should.
He did
we
send
should-
us a check.
Yes.
Seemed low to me, and that's why I was asking the question.
Is there any report with that?
Did I not send one with the check?
No, sir.
I'll get you one.
Okay.
Okay? Now, moving on to item number 9, we threw them with item 8, everybody good on the Grand River non-pledged items? We discussed those earlier also. Discuss amendment to certificate of incorporation to confirm dissolving the distribution provision to the 5th amended and restated Cooperative District agreement.
Should be conformed. Yeah, to conform it. It's
Oh,
just that,
conform.
the
Yeah.
certificate of incorporation, the dissolution provisions in it just say that upon dissolution, the assets will be distributed to Leeds 50%, Moody 25, St. Clair 45. So we just need to amend that to match up with what we have in the 5th amended and restated cost agreement. More administrative thing. We hadn't prepared the document to do that. Unfortunately, amending the certificate of incorporation involves the board of directors has to approve the form of the amendment, and then each of the public bodies has to go back and their respective bodies have to approve it.
We have to advertise it also before we do that?
No.
Change
You
the
have to
certificate of incorporation?
We just have to have a meeting of each of the individual members.
Okay.
And I think this was just for discussion purposes. Mike,
To know we're fixed to do that,
Yeah.
and we think it would be ready to act on by April meeting?
Yeah, we'll have it ready to do by next day.
Okay with that. Okay. Okay, that completes our agenda. We have any other comments from our legal folks, or
Can you reiterate the confidentiality of this?
Mine back.
yeah, actually, he blocked out any, I think, you blocked out any
I tried to redact
entities.
it.
Yeah, it's redacted anyway, so I don't know of anything. I I saw in there, but yeah, this is,
The problem is, I think with some of those pages, even though names and whatnot are redacted, I think you could extrapolate from that.
Yeah.
What you needed to, and that's, obviously that's something that has to be kept confidential by law, so.
Right.
I don't know about these guys, but, I'm gonna turn mine over to my attorney.
Either do that or burn it.
Well, it's the same thing. You ever give it to the attorney?
You're gonna get billed for turning
Goes
it
into
over.
a black hole somewhere. Okay, that's all the items on our agenda. Entertain a motion to adjourn. Second, proper motion second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. All opposed stay here.